Hello, here we are, flight 17, and today we're going to be going from EIKK, Kilkenny, to EICK, Cork. Obviously we landed in Kilkenny last time, and we did have a look at the castle and the cathedral, Canish Cathedral, and Kilkenny Castle. But we'll have another look because I've done some research this time, and yeah, should be good to have a flight where I've actually done a bit of research about where we fly in. We're going to fly over Thomastown, and we're going to fly down to New Ross. I found an interesting story about New Ross from like back in the day, like the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s sort of area. Quite, old stories. We're going to fly past Crook and Hook. There's a lighthouse at Hook Lighthouse. Did some little research on that. Then we're going to go down the coast to Dungarvan. We're going to fly back inland a bit to see EICK Castle. And then we're going to fly down to Cobb and Coleman's Cathedral. There's a prison island just by there as well, a bit like Alcatraz, so we'll have a look at that. And then we're going to fly into Cork. So let's get in the plane and have a fly around Ireland. Kilkenny, Cork, that sort of area. Okay, so here we are, Kilkenny, EIKK, and there's the old field that we landed at last time on flight 16. So let's get in the plane. Not much of an airport route, it's just a grass strip as you can see, but let's just check the pressure is all alright, and the controls, get the heading sorted out, and the altitude and whatnot. Just move the reticle round so it lines up with our GPS course, like there, the magenta line. Altitude, maybe 2000, maybe a bit lower to start with. We can always adjust it if we need to go up higher, but we're quite close to Kilkenny. Obviously this is Kilkenny Airport, so we want to basically go and have a look at the castle and the cathedral, get the lights sorted, just checking the instrument panel, and we'll just hide that so we can see a bit better. Speed. Get some power into the old plane, and up we go. Up and away. We have liftoff. Get the old nav mode on.
Shannon
Autopilot.
Center, Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is type Cessna Caravan 1 miles west of Echo India Kilo 800 feet. Request flight following.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Shannon Center. Squawk 0147.
Squawk 0147 Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra radar contact 1 mile southwest of Echo India Kilo 1,500 feet. Altimeter 30.29er.
Roger, Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
Just got to get on course now. So we want to have a look at Kilkenny Canish Cathedral and Kilkenny Castle. Kilkenny Castle and Canish Cathedral, we should be just approaching those now. We'll have another little flyby. We did last time, but we'll have a flyby because I've done some research, as I say. So Kilkenny Castle was built by a guy called Strongbow, and he came to Ireland during the Anglo-Norman invasion in 1159. He originally built it out of wood. It was like a wooden fort, but a guy called William Marshall, who was around in Richard Lionheart, I think he was one of his knights. Did like the Holy Crusades and stuff like that, but he actually built it into stone. He was the son-in-law of Strongbow, so he married into the family, and he got that castle and built it up into stone. And the castle is actually very well kept now, because like basically back in the 60s, the guy who owned it in the 60s, he sold it to a conservation crew for £15, if you won't believe it. Literally because he couldn't afford to, you know, keep it in the condition it should be kept in, and it was falling into a bit of rack and ruin. So he sold it to the conservative, like, you know, the people that take over these old buildings and, you know, basically restore them. And they restored it. It's, if you can actually go in there now. We're coming towards it now, and it looks a bit like a sort of country house style inside these days, because they've restored the whole thing, and you can have a walk around. The only bit that isn't there is the gatehouse, because that got destroyed by Oliver Cromwell in 1650. He invaded Ireland and besieged Kilkenny and the castle, and yeah, they destroyed the gatehouse. But that's the old castle there. It's a bit like a stately home inside these days. And St Canice Cathedral, which you can see here now on the right, was built in 1205. A lot of the you find that a lot of the buildings that we're going to have a look at sort of originate sort of in the 600s. You know, the 6th century. Well, oh, is that a 5th? Yeah, that'll be the 7th century really. So yeah, 600s. But they get built up in like the 1200s. So like the 13th century, I suppose. Built up into stone, basically after the Anglo-Norman invasions. So yeah, St Canice Cathedral, which we just flew by, that was built up in 1205 into stone. replaced an earlier church that was built there from, like I say, the 600s when St. Canis came to establish his church. And there is actually a seat, the original seat from the church, a stone seat that was in the original church, is now built into the wall of the cathedral. So the actual stone seat itself is literally back, you know, it's the actual original 600 and something seat when they actually did the original church. That's built into the wall there, and that's called St. Kieran's chair. You can still go and have a look at that and sit in it if you want when you have a walk around the cathedral there. And the main stained glass window was that, I was saying about the castle. Cromwell destroyed the gatehouse when he invaded. Well, when he left Kilkenny, he ordered that they rip out all the stained glass windows in St. Canis Cathedral, which were like the original ones. Like, basically had them ripped out just so he could take the lead out of these windows and melt it down into lead shot. I mean, it's pretty sacrilegious if you ask me. He destroyed a lot of stuff like castles, and I mean, he devastated the ones in England. But fortunately there was a sketch made previously, because when they built the cathedral, the Pope at the time wanted to see these beautiful windows. So they had some sketches done and sent off to Rome. So they've still got these sketches. So what they've done since then, since Oliver Cromwell's devastating, you know, destruction, they've had them rebuilt. So like, they basically had them redone, staying the same original way that they were made. All the original sort of crafting is put back into them. From these sketches, they are the original design, so you can actually still see the windows as they originally were when the cathedral was first built. So we're going to fly down towards Thomastown now, but there's another interesting little thing if you ever go there to see that cathedral. It's got a round tower which you can still climb to this day. For a small fee, you can climb at the top of the tower. So that's quite a tall tower. I don't think another cathedral's got one of those in Ireland. And Bishop Ledred, who resided in this cathedral, right, and he comes into a story I'm going to tell you about a witch I found. There's a witch, yeah, the Witch of Kilkenny. So that's quite an interesting story. Well, I'm going to tell you in a bit when we get some time in between the places you're going to visit. I'll tell you about that. But this Bishop Ledred, right, he got hold of the first ever copy of the Magna Carta in Ireland. That's in that cathedral. And another really, well, I thought it was interesting. Maybe if you like whiskey, the very first ever recorded recipe of whiskey is found in that cathedral, and that Bishop Ledred, he had that, you know, documented and put into the cathedral. It's like part of the archives of the cathedral. So yeah, the very, very first ever recorded recipe of whiskey is in that cathedral. So I think you still see that to this day, or whether they've moved it to a more better place to like store these ancient documents. Probably they might have done. Not sure if it's actually still in the cathedral, but it was. That's where they found it. So we're going to fly down to Thomastown. Here's Thomastown now, and you can see where the river like winds past Thomastown. Just down there, look. There's quite a few disused water mills along this river now. And yeah, there's I couldn't actually see it, but somewhere around here there's like a little castle. It's not really a castle, it's sort of well, they call it a castle, but it's sort of a tall castled house, if you like. But this castle, which was built in 1210, called Brennan Castle, is around here somewhere. If you can actually see it, you probably can't. I couldn't find it on the map when I was looking. But apparently Anne Boleyn, the second wife of Henry VIII, stopped at this castle and had a banquet when she was on the way to England to marry Henry VIII. And her mother is actually Margaret Butler of Kilkenny Castle. She used to live in Kilkenny Castle, so that's another little tie-in. You can see like that they used to have loads of mills along this river back in the day, and there's still quite a few old mills along the river, you know, disused water mills. There's actually another, there's a famous architect who grew up around here called James Hoban, and you all know his most famous building that he built. You don't have to be into architecture to know this, but it's actually the White House in Washington. He built and designed that. So yeah, that's a sort of famous personage from around here. We're going to fly down to New Ross now. So I did a little bit of research on New Ross, and there's an interesting story there from New Ross, other than the fact that actually New Ross is where President Kennedy's father, Patrick Kennedy, came from. So he emigrated to Ireland, from Ireland to America from New Ross. But there's an interesting story that I found, again, back in the same sort of time period, like the 13th century. Right, they had these friars. They had a couple of priories there, and the first lot of friars that came in, they were called the crutched friars. And to sustain these crutched friars, instead of like the king and the government giving them some monies or an allowance, they said, right, you've got the right to tax people bringing goods up the river. So they were quite stringent in taxing people bringing goods up the river. So a lot of people didn't like the friars, right, these crutch friars, because of their sort of, what they thought of them as being greedy, because like every boat got taxed that went down that river past New Ross. But one of the friars, he had a dispute with one of the townsfolk, right, and we don't really know what it was about, probably a woman or money or something. But they had an affray, and unfortunately the friar seems to have, I wouldn't say murdered, but I think they had a bit of a fight, or they were probably both as guilty as each other. But the townsman got killed in this fight, right, so the friar killed him, and his friends in the town went round and said, these friars, look, they've murdered our friend, let's go and sort them out. So they got a big rabble together, and they went up to the priory, and basically they sacked the priory, burnt the priory to the ground, killed 3 of the friars, and yeah, not good. So like basically the abbot who was in charge of these friars, he gathered the rest of the remaining friars together. They got them on a boat to leave, basically left town. But on the way, when they were on this boat just sailing off, he turned back to the townspeople, like standing on the dock, and he shouted this curse. He cursed the town, right? He's like, I curse this town, and 3 of the citizens of this town each year annually will die claimed by this river as payment for my 3 dead friars. And also, you are excommunicated. I excommunicate the whole town. You are no longer part of the church. And problem with that was that curse that he laid on the town, people would still talk about that and believed in that curse, and brought the curse up all the way into the 1970s, right? So if somebody like drowned in the river, or committed suicide, or got too drunk and fell in and drowned, you'd hear people saying, oh, there's going to be 2 more, because that's the curse, there'll be 2 more, that's the first one. Yeah, right into the 70s people believed that. Crazy. But you can see there's a plaque on one of the streets, on the building close to the priory. the main street, out away from the bay here. So this is New Ross here. You can see a plaque that's commemorating this curse, and when it got lifted, right. So basically, in the 1400s, they were having some bad
Cessna
luck.
Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf
Just
Sierra
waiting for
Shannon
radio.
Center. Cleared through the Charlie airspace.
Cleared through Charlie airspace Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
Yeah, so basically, in the 1400s, they were having some bad luck and things weren't going right, and so they got like the whole town got like a bit of they raised some money to send somebody off to Rome to try and get them recommunicated to the church because of this excommunication and this curse that had been laid on them, and the fact that they were outside of the church, and they sent them off to Rome. So he gets to Rome. This is 1436, and they have a look. The Pope and his ministers, they have a look through the records and they go, actually we lifted that curse and we recommunicated with the church 200 years ago. Didn't you get the message? Well, obviously they sent somebody off, but you can imagine back then, God knows what happened to this person. Maybe he died on the way, or got murdered or robbed, or just absconded, who knows. But they never got the message, and so for 200 years they thought they were still excommunicated from the church, but they weren't. And anyway, so they officially got reintroduced to the church and knew that they were part of the church. And there's a plaque on the wall there commemorating that. And that happened in 1436 by Pope Eugenius IV. And also, President Kennedy, like the year President Kennedy died, right, 1963, he visited New Ross earlier in the year and gave a speech to people. And they've got like a statue of Kennedy there in the street, like holding his hand out as if to shake that hand. So you can still see people like shaking President Kennedy's hand, his statue, you know, on a daily back down there in New Ross. And he gave a speech, because obviously that's where his dad came from, and he said, well, if my dad had never left New Ross, maybe I'd be working in John V. Kelly's pub there. And he pointed to the pub and says, oh, I could have been just like, you know, a normal person, just knocking around, working in the pub, being a barman. But no, that's not what history happened. So there, yeah, there's a like a statue of the place where he gave his speech there, and like a little stand there with the speech engraved. You can read the speech to this day. People loved him for that, Kennedy. But yeah, he got assassinated later that year, unfortunately. We're going to have a little flight over to Cork and Crook now. So you can see where the river comes down past New Ross and on into towards Kilkenny here, and it comes down from the sea past the place called Hook and Crook. Right, and as I was talking about Oliver Cromwell invading in 1650, well, he basically came. This is the way he came into invade Ireland, and there's a lighthouse at Hook, so they went for the lighthouse and then they sailed down this river here past Crook. And I don't know if you've ever heard that old saying, by hook or crook. Well, apparently that was coined by Cromwell in 1650 when he was there, and he goes, by hook or crook, I'm gonna get and take over an island, basically. So that's where that old saying comes from. There's as you can see, there's a place called Nook as well. Hook, Crook and Nook. So yeah. But the lighthouse we're gonna fly past is actually the world's oldest operational lighthouse. The oldest lighthouse on the planet that's still used to this day. That, yeah, that was also built in the 13th century. You can tell because, like, when you go inside, it's got these ribbed ceilings, these ribbed vault ceilings, and they're very commonly used in the 13th century to build like various vaulted ceilings. There's Crook down there, look. And we'll fly over to that peninsula there, right on the edge, right on the end there. Just about see it now. Sticking up on the very far tip of that peninsula is Hook Lighthouse, the oldest lighthouse on the planet that's still in operation. Crazily enough though, this lighthouse, right, didn't get electricity until 1972. So they just like using oil lamps and whatnot all the way up till 1972 when it got electricity. It's not a very big lighthouse though. It's like from the viewing platform at the top down to the base of the lighthouse is only 22 metres, so we'll have a fly around that. And have a little look at that, and then we'll head over to towards Coburn, Dungarvan. Yeah, we're going to Dungarvan first, actually. Or at least we're going past Dungarvan. We're going to go up to Leesmore Castle.
500.
And then we'll head over to, well, we'll be flying sort of via Ballyduff Way and then to St Colman's Cathedral, which is at Cove, and then we'll fly over Prison Island. I've got just off the docks there, Cove, a bit like sort of Alcatraz. And then we're going to fly to Blackrock, which has got an observatory, a castle that's been converted into an observatory. It's not a very big castle, but we'll have a look at that because it's on our way. And we go to Cork, and then we can fly down, we'll have a look at Cork, and then we'll land in Cork Airport. But here comes the lighthouse now, Hook Lighthouse. And yeah, there's also this witch story I've got to tell you, so tell you that in a minute. We'll just fly around this lighthouse and I'll tell you all about that. It's quite interesting. Here we are, the oldest operational lighthouse on the planet. There were some older lighthouses, but they've all been rebuilt or destroyed, or aren't operational anymore. You know, they've just gone into disrepair. This is the oldest one that's still being used to this day. So there it is. As I say, it's not massive. But yeah, still quite interesting. That's like one of the seats got that little symbol on it. That's like a point of interest. So I've picked out all the points of interest that we can fly by on this little expedition, Flight 17. We get back on course now, and I'll tell you all about this witch. So yeah, it's the Witch of Kilkenny, right? And her name was Dame Alice Kytler. That's Kytler. And she was accused of basically devil worship and witchcraft. She was born in 1263, and she became a moneylender by this woman. And obviously, a moneylender is sort of, it's making money off the poor. They haven't got enough money. You lend them a few coppers and then charge them interest. And you know, she was pretty much hated by the townsfolk. You know, not a pleasant sort of person really to be doing that. But you know, times were tough back then in the 1200s, obviously. You know, and that's how she made a living. But she actually opened an inn, and that inn is still open to this day. So you can go to this inn called Kettler Inn. So she married this guy called William Outlaw, who was also a moneylender. So between them, like right pair, they had a kid called William. Like they named him after his father. But she's like getting quite wealthy doing this money lending, and well hated by townsfolk. And she remarried to another money lender after her first husband, this William, died, right? Called Adam LeBlond. Yeah, but basically, following her first husband's death, around 1302, she was suspected of murder. But you know, the thing is with this, that she basically, she wasn't well liked anyway, so you know, that nothing came of that. So she opened this inn. So basically, she opened this inn. Then in 1280, she married a guy called William Outlaw, who was also a money lender, as I say, and they had a child called William. And she remarried to another guy called Adam LeBlond, following her first husband's death. And in 1302, they accused her of like murder, right? But nothing comes of it, as I say. After her second husband's death, prior to which he'd left all his worldly goods, right, to Alison's son's William, despite having his own children, like this second husband. He'd got his own children from a previous marriage, right, and he just suspiciously leaves all his worldly goods to her son, William, and then he dies. So that was very suspicious, right. So by 1309, she marries again, right. So these husbands are just dying left and right, to this guy called Richard DeVoe, a wealthy landowner, and he passes away again. So there's now three, all in suspicious circumstances. But you know, it's hard to prove anything back then. So now she moves on to her fourth husband, and every time she's like marrying these people, they're always wealthy. You know, she's getting more and more wealthy, more and more powerful. You know. And she marries this fourth guy called John Lepoer, and he falls ill in 1324, right? And just as he was preparing to change his will again in Alison's favour, right? And so his children are like really suspicious by now, right? And they're like, wait a minute, she's getting all the money, we're not getting anything. So so they start like sniffing around, and they convince their father, John Lepoer, right, that he's being poisoned by her, right. This is just before he dies, right. So they do a bit of digging about, and they find some suspicious items like that are pointing towards alchemy. So basically, herbs and stuff like that, and you know, that sort of thing. I mean, it was all sort of witchcrafty back then. Anything to do with herbs or whatever, you know, plants and stuff like that, potions and stuff like that. So they go and they see the bishop, right? The bishop is the guy I mentioned earlier who had the recipe for the whiskey. It's Richard Ledred, his name was Bishop Richard Ledred, right? And they give this evidence to him just before the husband dies, the fourth husband. So she's now been through four husbands and they've all died mysteriously, leaving her all their worldly goods. So, but this time it's different because the guy's basically accused her of poisoning him, right? So this bishop, he accuses Kettler and her son William, and also her servant girl, right, of witchcraft, basically her household, right. So this Ledred accuses of witchcraft and devil worship and heresies, as they used to call it back then. And he writes off to the Chancellor of Ireland, demanding she be arrested. But the thing with that is, she had woven her way into like the upper echelons of power in Ireland at this point. She's rich and powerful, basically. And the guy who's the Chancellor, this Richard Outlaw, if you remember, her first husband was Outlaw. It's like she'd married into his family. He was actually basically brother-in-law, so and friend, and he's like refuses to arrest her, and he's like, I'm not arresting her. He's like, actually, you're accusing her of witchcraft. You haven't even excommunicated her out of the church. That's the first thing you should have done, and that takes 40 days. So you need to do that. Then we've got to wait 40 days before we can even consider this charge. So no, I'm not going to arrest her. So this bishop, right, his summons Keitler to him, but she's fled off because he wants to question her about it, right? But she's fled off to Dublin, right, basically where all her powerful friends live, to seek protection from, right? So basically, while she's in Dublin, this Bishop Ledred, he excommunicates her from the church and starts waiting the 40 days and sets a time for her to be arrested and tried for witchcraft, right? And he also arrests her son William and her maid, right? But William, he's also got powerful friends as well, because if you remember, she also married a guy called Lepore, and this William, so that's like in the family, if you like. So her extended family of people she's murdered, but you know, still, they've got money, they've got wealth, you know, they're influential. They, you know, no, she hasn't actually been convicted, or really, it's just sort of more common folk have been accusing her of these things, not the people with any power. So this William, he's got like serious friends. So he's got a friend called Arnold Lepore, who's a seneschal. He's like part of the government. And this Arnold Lepore, he again, he starts petitioning this William Ledred to drop all the charges, right? And in fact, he takes it that far, he gets him arrested. So they arrest the bishop, right, throw him in Kilkenny Castle, and for 17 days he's getting questioned. But he's a high up, you know, powerful character in the church, and the church is really powerful back then. So basically what happens is, they end up all getting summoned to Dublin, right? So the church go, it's basically a fight between the church and the state. But in the 12th century, well, that would be 13th century, wouldn't it? The 1200s, you know, the church is really, really powerful, and they basically come out on top in Dublin and win. You know, they win the right to like arrest Keitler, right? So they've got the maid, and they've got Keitler. They get hold of Keitler because of the you know, this court case in Dublin, if you like, this trial or whatever it was. She gets arrested, so they take her back to Kilkenny, throw her in jail in Kilkenny Castle, get this William, he's in jail in Kilkenny Castle now, and the maid, right, they arrest her maid, right, who was called Petronella de Meth, right, that's her maid. So Petronella de Meth is probably the only person in this whole story who's innocent. He's just a goddamn maid with no money, no influence, no power. Do you know what I mean? And so they don't touch William, the son. They don't. You know, he's just like they question her, but they don't touch them. Right? And Kettler's in jail. Question her, don't touch her. But the maid, who's got no influence, no power, and is just a poor, normal person that worked for her, who's probably got absolutely no idea what's even been going on. well, they torture her, don't they? For like weeks, they torture her. And eventually, she just tells them anything they want to hear. So she's like, yeah, we flied on broomsticks, and we worship the devil, and we worship demons, and we did sacrifices to demons. And in fact, she goes as far as to say that this Kettler had been having an affair with a demon called Desmond. How crazy is that? And yeah, she says she's frequently having sex with this demon, right? And so basically now they're doomed, right? But in the meantime, while this has been going on, Kettler's powerful friends have like basically paid these mercenaries to go down and rescue her. So these mercenaries come down to the castle, and they like, but you know, heavily armed, and they're not expecting it. So they break in, they beat the absolute bejesus out of the guards there, take the keys, and let Kettler go. Right. So she escapes and goes off to England, never to be heard of again. She escapes, basically, she gets away with it. A son is basically ordered to go to church and go to mass 3 times a day, right? And he's also ordered to repair St. Canice Cathedral roof whenever it's in disrepair with his own cash, and he's got to give some money to the poor, and that's his penance. But Petronella, the only innocent in this story, is tortured some more, whipped, flogged in the square, and burned at the stake as a witch on the 3rd of November 1324. Outrageous. So really, the Witch of Kilkenny is Kettler, Alice Kettler, sorry, Dame Alice Kettler. She wasn't a witch, she was just a blatant serial murder, murdering her husbands, poisoning her husbands, getting them to change their will, take all the money, get more and more powerful, more and more rich, and she basically got away with it. I mean, the church took most of her wealth that she'd left behind in Ireland, like her property and stuff, and just took it for themselves, you know, killed the innocent maid at the stake, the worst way you can possibly imagine. And yeah, that's the story of the Witch of Kilkenny. It wasn't much justice back then, was there? So we are now coming up towards, or should be coming up towards here, because this river here, we should be coming up towards the castle that's on the way. That was marked on, it's called Leesmore Castle. This is County Waterford, this bit. So we'll be coming towards that. We should see it in a minute. I would have thought on the, I think this river bends round to the left, and then it should be on our left hand side, just along the river. It's built by, this Leesmore Castle was built by Prince John at the start of the 12th century, just before he became king. And actually, it became this property fell into the hands of it became the property of Sir Walter Raleigh later on in the 16th century. But he sold it to a guy called Richard Boyle, basically to raise some funds. And this Richard Boyle was the first Earl of Cork. So he sold him that in 1602. So we should be coming towards it any second now. It's just down here by this river. Oh, I can just see it now. There it is on the left there. Leesmore Castle. Look, we'll have a fly past that. But one of this Richard Boyle's ancestors, future ancestors, was, it passed down from son to son, and then there was just a daughter who inherited it, and she married into the English upper class, if you like, the 4th Duke of Devonshire. And he saw this castle, and he sort of fell in love with this castle, and he had it all built up like even better than it was before, like in his romanticised vision of what a castle by a river should be. So here it is now, just coming down and have a little flyby. As you can see there, it is like just against the Blackwater River, I think that is. Yeah, it's Lee Small Castle, look. Pretty splendid. But yeah, so the 4th Duke had it built up into the state it is now today, but the 6th Duke was around during the potato famine. He was very sympathetic to the people, and he reduced the rent to virtually nothing of the estate during the potato famine, and did everything he could to help as many of the locals and the poor people that were suffering from this famine that he could, and people loved him for that. And in fact, you see that field just in front of the castle there, opposite, across the river there. So out of one of these, see that tower there? See that window there? One of those windows there. What the IRA took that castle over briefly for about 3 months, right? And apparently they'd set up in one of those towers there, looking out the window. They'd set up some targets across in that field over the opposite side of the river, and they were practice shooting this machine gun through that window into that field on targets, and all the clips and the ammunition was pinging off the wall on the right hand side next to the window, like dented all the wall, took big chunks out of plaster and that. And so when they left, they didn't do anything bad to the castle other than that, really. They just took it over for about 3 months. And then they, basically because of this 6th Duke's reputation for being, for the people and looking after them during the famine, they just left it, out of respect for this guy, and didn't do anything destructive to the castle. But yeah, what they've done now is where they've marked the wall with this machine gun, they've basically framed it, so they put a wooden frame in, and you can go in and see like that little snippet of history, just captured in the wall, and the marked plaster on the wall, and that's still there to this day. So when you can go around in that castle and have a look. You pay a few quid and you go and have a wander around and guided tour, and that's part of it. So that's pretty interesting, I thought. So I was looking for some other interesting places in the way, and I thought there's loads of tiny little castles all over Ireland, and like Ballyduff sort of area, which is where we're sort of flying through now towards Cork and Cobb, right? There was like a couple of little castles. There was a castle that's like built 1220. I was trying to find that. It was built by the Anglo-Normans after the Irish conquest, after the conquest of Ireland. In 1185, they converted. Basically, it was built in 1185 and converted to stone in 1220 after the Anglo-Norman conquest. Well, I was trying to find it. Couldn't really see where it was, but it's not marked. Like some things are marked as points of interest, and I think this was just a little because there's loads of little castles all over the place. Just trying to see now, can spot it or anything like it, but probably not going to have any luck on that front. And there's also a church around here that called that basically this church, like back in the 12th century, like and 13, and before, there was a load of Vikings. Like it would be before actually, because I think that the Vikings took over. Right, they took over Cork in the 900s, 915 or something like that. It will be in my notes in a minute. But basically they were constantly raiding around Cork because there's like a big cathedral here and lots of churches, and like, you know, they always have silver, so the Vikings love that. Just come in, just take it, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I was just saying, so basically, because of the Vikings, this one lot of monks, they built like a big tower, and every time the Vikings would come, they would like get all the stuff and just go and hide in this tower. I was trying to find that, but I couldn't quite see where it was.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Cork approach. Cleared through the Charlie airspace.
Cleared through Charlie airspace, Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
So we're going to go down to Cobb now, and St Coleman's Cathedral, which is the tallest cathedral in Ireland. It's 300 feet high, but it's not like an old cathedral. It was built like in the 1800s. It was yeah, between 1868 and 1919 it was built, so it's quite modern. You know, you wouldn't know that unless I told you to look at it, but because it's built in a like Gothic style, you know. Neo-Gothic, I think they call it, the style of it. But yeah, it's 300 feet high. It's got 49 bells in the tower, and it's got 49 statues all around and sculptures. Not quite sure why they picked 49, but yeah. It overlooks Cobb Harbour and Spike Island. Spike Island is a prison, and actually that was the largest prison in the British Empire at one point. It's like a sort of you know, an Alcatraz type prison, so it's like a prison built on an island, just like Alcatraz. But yeah, St Coleman Cathedral should look pretty impressive when we go past. And the architects were Edward Pugin and George Ashlin. Oh yeah, this is the area. So that, I think that main, see the island there? Not on the left, just the one in the middle there. I think that is Spike Island, the one that's got the prison on it. Yeah, we'll have a look. And St Coleman's Cathedral is on the right down there. There's Cobb. There's a big port here, where a lot of people emigrated from. This is like last port of call before, you know, you go over to America from here. In fact, outside the Heritage Centre on the quay here, there's a statue of Annie Moore and her two brothers, which they erected in, I think, only as late as 1993. But there's one also in New York, you know, because Annie was the first emigrant to set foot on Ellis Island, and there's a similar statue of Adia on Ellis Island where she's standing alone holding a suitcase. That's quite a famous statue actually, and yeah, she's like a symbol for the millions of people who left Ireland in the potato famine. Apparently, right, from this port here, well, actually from Ireland overall, over 1.5 million people emigrated during that famine between 1845 and 1851. Around 700 a day were leaving, right, and the majority from Cobb, this place. There's a naval yard there as well, look. And here's here's Spike Island, the Alcatraz of Ireland, if you like. And yeah, this was the biggest prison in the whole of the British Empire at one point. So now we're going to have a little flyby the cathedral, and you can see why this is such a good port city.
500.
Oh, there's a big old ship, look, cruise ship. We're gonna head in towards Cork now via Black Rock, which has got a castle. Such as a small castle really, built by Elizabeth I in 1582. It was like basically because pirates and Vikings would constantly raid Ireland, and it was part of the defences for that, against that. And actually, in 1720, this is a little interesting factoid as we come towards Black Rock here now. But this little castle, right, it burnt down in 1722 and was destroyed by fire, right. And the local residents, the citizens around Black Rock, banded together to get it rebuilt, and they had it rebuilt. Guess how much it cost them? And this just goes to show what inflation is like. But so basically, they had a castle built, and the total cost of the rebuild was £296. There you go. That's inflation for you. 1722 to build a castle, you only needed £296. Hopefully we'll be able to see this castle, because I did spot it, but it was repurposed, right, as an observatory in the early 2000s. You can go there today and go and basically they've got a big telescope stuck on top of this castle, and you can hear like lectures, guided tours. Like part of that is like a lecture on space, the planets, and the solar system. So we should be able to see this castle. We'll have a little flyby it. It's not like a big castle, it's more like a tower really. But yeah, you can see it's on the map. It is modelled.
Cork approach Shamrock 877 Heavy is passing 5,700 feet, climbing 9,700 feet.
But like this whole area of Cork, as you can see, is quite watery.
Shamrock 877 Heavy, you are 19 miles south of Cork. Descend and maintain 3,000 feet. Contact Cork Tower on 121.7.
The Gaelic for Cork is Corgaig, which means marsh. So this was all marshland back in the day. Oh, here it is. You can see this is the Black Rock Castle there. See it just by the water there.
Tower on 121.7 Shamrock.
There we go. You should be able to see the observatory on top, the telescope dome. It's not a big castle as you can see, but yeah. Less than £300 to build a castle back in 1722. There it is, look, see the dome for the observatory. Just have another little fly around. Quite interesting, I thought. So, and as it's modelled, I thought, yeah, we'll definitely visit that. There you go. Yeah, so this whole area was all marshland and peat bogs
500.
back years and years ago. Founded by Saint Finbar in the 6th century, and like I was saying earlier, yeah, 915. In 915, the Vikings, after like doing years and years of basically raiding, in the year 915 they actually moved in and took over, like, and yeah, of Cork. So I reckon that's like sort of affected the accent around Cork. But the first attacks of the Vikings apparently around Cork were like, you know, virtually 100 years before that. 820 they started raiding Ireland, and then in 915 they actually moved in. But this river, as you can see all these bridges, because the river comes down, this is the River Lee, comes down in towards Cork, and then it splits in two as it goes through Cork here, and they've actually got 29 bridges. And another interesting fact as well, 100 pubs have got there, so it's a good place to go for holiday. And see these two churches here, I think the one closest to us now, that's probably, if I'm not mistaken, although you can't actually see it very well, arguably the most famous building in Cork if you live around there. It's called St Anne's of Shendon, erected in 1722, which replaced the church called St Mary's, which was destroyed in the siege of Cork. That would be, guess who did that? Yeah, you're right, it's the old Oliver Cromwell yet again, destroying ancient buildings, stained glass windows and anything he could get his hand on, by the sounds of it. The rotter. But yeah, this church, it's got an 11 foot it's over 11 feet long, and it's like a salmon. You know, usually you have like a cockerel on top. They've got a salmon 11 feet long, and it's painted gold, and they call it the Goldy Fish. Don't know if you can see. I'm just trying to have a look now, so if you can actually see it. Probably won't be able to. Which,
500.
yeah, we're just about to fly. Yeah, there's if you see it, can't really see. Maybe a little bit. Oh, my plane got in the way, but yeah, quite interesting to have a Goldy Fish on top of a church. And you probably know this already, but the last place the Titanic stopped before disaster was Cork in 1912. It's a main port for a trip to over to New York in that way. But and also there was another well, I say famous, it's not really that famous, but back when they were first starting to do, you know, steamships, one of the first steamships to attempt the crossing of the Atlantic in 1838 left from Cork, but it basically didn't get very far. It hit a rock off Ballycotton, which isn't that far, and sank. So total disaster. That was even more disastrous than the Titanic. Not that it's anything to do with Cork, it just happened to leave here, so just another interesting little factoid there that I found out. we should be coming towards the airport now. And Cork is actually, while I was looking, I found that's the largest county in Ireland, and it used to be called the Golden Vale, because it's got the best land in Ireland for dairy farming. And back in the 19th century, like the 1800s, it was the largest exporter of butter in the whole world. That's how good it was for dairy farming around here. I mean, you can tell. I mean, look how green it is. Here's the airport. Right, so I'm gonna maybe just do a little loop and come back and land here at Cork Airport, and that will be the end of flight 17. I hope you enjoyed that. Bit more interesting. I had some things to tell you about the area. Let me know in the comments if you like that. Probably could just, I mean, this run, I didn't realise how long this runway is. I mean, that is a proper airport, isn't it? I probably could have just came in and landed there, but we'll just do a loop and we'll come round and we'll land. Maybe pull into that little bit there with the little airplane bits. Oh. See, that's runway 34, I think. Oh, look at this! We nearly had a head-on crash there. And yeah, where was air traffic control? Eh? Didn't say a word. That was a close call. Well, it would have been if it was real life. That would have been like a proper investigation. Lovely countryside in Ireland. A very green and pleasant land. With plenty of pubs, like I said. Over 100 pubs in Cork. That would be a good pub crawl, wouldn't it? It'd take you a week. I think you could actually come here for a 2-week holiday and just do a pub crawl. Probably be dying by the time we went home.
500.
Not advisable. Probably something you'd have great fun at failing. Try to do all the pubs, you wouldn't do it, but you'd have good fun trying. Let's hopefully get a successful landing here without crashing into another plane coming into land. You definitely can't rely on the traffic control, as we've just seen.
Cork Tower Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra is 2 miles northwest, 1,000 feet, with whiskey to land.
Cessna Alpha Sierra X-Ray Golf Sierra Cork Tower. Altimeter 30.3012 tree at 5. Enter left downwind runway tree 4.
And here we come.
Enter left
Engine
downwind
down.
runway tree for Cessna X-Ray Golf Sierra.
Straighten up. Lovely long runway. This should be easy peasy. Quite a few planes here. Just let it drop. There we go.
You are not cleared to land.
Always push the one side when I land. I'm not too brilliant at this landing like yet, am I? Oh, it's telling me off. Apparently I should, I
121
think he's
decimal
saying I should
85
have
Cessna
landed
X-ray Golf
facing
Sierra.
the other way, coming in from
Goodbye.
the other side. But yeah, we'll just get off the runway, like I say, by this little bit, and maybe pull up onto the grass. Suppose I could park down there, but nah, we'll just pull up onto the grass. I think pull over to the left here. And that basically concludes flight number 17. Bit more of a informative flight. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and it was a bit more interesting. I think it's just it's got to be just over an hour. That probably that's probably our longest flight so far. But please let me know in the comments if you enjoyed that, and I'll can keep it going. Maybe just obviously won't be able to put one out every day like that, but or yeah, probably maybe once a week, or depending on what time I've got. But yeah, let's just turn everything off, shut the old aircraft down, power down, and yeah, here we are in Cork. Turn off the old computers and conclude our flight. Really appreciate that, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.